The Fifth Crusade, the Great Crusader Defeat. In the history of the Crusades, the Fifth Crusade occupies a special place among Christians because several extraordinary events occurred. Thousands of young vagabonds tried to undertake a crusade on their own, following the visions of two demented monks. The French turned their backs on the crusade while waging a war in their land, and a crusader army drowned in the waters of the Nile while trying to take Cairo. No one can say that the Fifth Crusade had any significant breakthrough as far as papal ambitions are concerned, but almost all researchers seem to agree that the Fifth Crusade was a major defeat for Christianity. And that is why today we will tell you its story. The Crusades of the Children. As happened with the first two Crusades, the Fifth Crusade had several waves. The first two waves became known as the Children's Crusade. According to legend, the first wave arose after a 12-year-old French boy was visited twice by Jesus Christ. On his first visit, Jesus told him to write a series of letters to the French king, requesting a new crusade to reclaim Jerusalem. While on the second visit, Jesus commanded him to carry out the crusade himself, with the support of other innocent souls like him. He also tells him that he need not fear for the sea, for it will open as it did with Moses. At the same time, another child, in this case of German origin, receives the same mission from Jesus Christ and gathers a rather small number of German children to undertake a crusade. On their way, the children pass through towns and villages, stealing whatever food they can find. More than half of the 20 to 30,000 children on the crusade to Nice deserted and the others starved to death. Finally, about 2,000 children and 200 adults arrived in Nice. Then they spend 2 weeks praying for the sea to part. Nothing happens. Apparently taking pity on them, two merchants offer them 7 ships to cross the sea to the Holy Land. The children boarded the ships and set sail, about 600 of them dying in a shipwreck in Sardinia. However, 5 ships managed to reach their destination in Alexandria, Egypt, where they ended up being sold as slaves by the merchants who offered them passage to the Holy Land. It's not clear from the legend whether the German and French children met and set out on their journey together, or whether they did so separately. The Crusades of the Pueri. According to modern historians, the Children's Crusades were not composed of children as the legend says, but of the Pueri, a group of wanderers who appeared in Europe in the 1200s. Although the term Pueri refers to boys or children in Latin, a term that made the ancient monks think that the crusade was carried out by children in later centuries, it was not used that way in the Middle Ages, but as a way of referring to poor and naive people from northern France and Germany. The first wave of the Pueri was led by Nicholas, a shepherd from Germany, who crossed the Alps into Italy in the early spring of 1212. The symbol of the Pueri was the Christian cross, hence scholars associated this group with the Crusades. According to current estimates, about 7,000 Pueri arrived in Genoa in August of that year. However, their plans failed because the sea did not split in two, as prophesied by Nicholas, causing them to disperse. Some of the Pueri set out for home, others went for Rome, and the remainder may have followed the course of the Rhone to Marseille, where they probably ended up sold into slavery, none of them reaching the Holy Land. The second wave of the Pueri took place in June of the same year, and was led by a young shepherd named Stephen of Cloyes near the village of Châteaudun, who claimed to be carrying a letter from Jesus to the King of France. After gathering a group of 30,000, he went to Saint Denis, where he was said to have worked miracles. Finally, King Philip II of France, or the Council of the University of Paris, ordered the crowd to return to their homes, and many of them did indeed return. None of the sources of the time mention any plan to go to Jerusalem. The Hungarian Crusade. After the failure of the Fourth Crusade, Pope Innocent III issued the papal bull Quia Major, calling on all Christendom to join a Fifth Crusade to destroy the Ayyubid Empire and recover Jerusalem. This was followed by another bull, the Ad Liberandum in 1215, which freed from the sins all those who participated directly or indirectly with it through donations. The message of the Fifth Crusade was preached by Cardinal Robert de Courson in France. However, unlike other crusades, on this occasion, most of the French knights refused to go, as they were already fighting in a crusade promoted by the church itself against the Cathar heresy in the south of France. After the death of Pope Innocent III in 1216, the crusade was placed under the command of Pope Honorius III. who entrusted the direction of the crusade to King Andrew II of Hungary and Duke Leopold VI of Austria. To finance the Fifth Crusade, King Andrew II had to make many sacrifices. He sold valuable items and jewellery, such as the crown of the Hungarian Queen Consort Gisela of Bavaria for 140 silver marks, borrowed several large Italian trading houses, and had to cede his claims to the city of Zadar, located in present-day Croatia, to the Venetians, who had taken it from him in the Fourth Crusade, in exchange for transporting the Crusaders on their ships. The Hungarian king and Duke Leopold VI of Austria managed to gather about 32,000 men, 20,000 knights and 12,000 soldiers, who departed from the port city of Lardingen on May 27, 1217, in 300 ships to the east. The voyage of Acre. After a 16-day voyage, they arrived at the coastal city of Acre, on the shores of the Mediterranean. In that city, they established the first war council in which King Andrew II, Leopold VI, Hugo I of Cyprus, Prince Bohemond IV of Antioch, three masters of the Teutonic Order, and King John Brienne of Jerusalem took part. The aim of the council was to rescue the Holy Lands from Muslim hands by fighting the Ayyubites in Syria. The Crusader armies headed south towards the mountain range next to Acre and set up camp outside Ricardina, while several expeditions set out in search of food and supplies to sustain the army. Between November 4th and November 10th, the Crusaders explored the vicinity of the castle on Mount Tabor, the Sea of Galilee, and the Ford of Jacob on their way back to Acre. The idea was to know the terrain well before attacking the Muslims. The ephemeral conquests. As the Crusaders advanced, they took control of several settlements, obtaining great booty, while they visited holy places such as Capernaum on the Jordan River, thus fulfilling the spiritual aspect of their crusade promises. In 1218, a new army arrived under the command of Oliver of Cologne, who together with Leopold VI and John of Brienne, decided to attack an Egyptian port located in the city of Damietta at the mouth of the Nile River. The siege was long and difficult and caused the death of many Crusaders and Muslims. Nevertheless, they eventually won the victory, thus ensuring the survival of the Frankish states. The Fifth Crusade would have ended with the conquest of Damietta and Cairo if they had attacked the latter city in 1219. However, disputes among the Crusaders themselves and the lack of support among them delayed the campaign for 2 years before they set out on their march to Cairo. Their delay was a fatal mistake, as taking Cairo would have been easier after the death of Sultan al-Adil at the siege of Damietta, when the Egyptians were without a leader. By the time the Crusaders reached Cairo, the new Sultan al-Kamil had reorganised his forces well, ambushing the Crusaders in large numbers, causing heavy casualties. And as if that were not enough, the flooding of the Nile River took the Crusaders by surprise, drowning them under the weight of their armour. Faced with this relentless defeat, the Crusaders were forced to surrender and hand over Damietta to al-Kamil, who accepted an 8-year peace agreement. And so it was that a humiliated and reduced group of Hungarian, Austrian and German Crusaders returned home, after suffering one of the greatest defeats of the Crusades. We hope you've enjoyed this 5th video about the Crusades, and that you will join us in the bloody history of this conflict, which continues in the story of the 6th Crusade. Don't close the video yet! Before you go, please subscribe and leave us a like if you like the content. It will help us grow and continue to make much more content. Now, without further ado, we say goodbye.